Hey everyone, Regular Jared here to say thanks for clicking on this video, and that, much like the Final Fantasy VIII video, I had a lot of troubles with copyright claimed music. Only this time, it wasn't even Square Enix claiming the music, it's some guy trying to claim that the Final Fantasy IX battle theme is actually his remix of the Final Fantasy IX battle theme. YouTube, man. Thankfully, to help avoid being copyright claimed or even blocked in some countries, I have a sponsor for this video. Raycon makes high-quality earbuds for your everyday life. The sound quality is incredible at only half the price of other premium earbuds on the market. With seamless Bluetooth pairing to any device, a full charge can make these little guys last up to 6 hours. With how long they last and how comfortable they are, they're perfect for wearing while you listen to music, a podcast, YouTube videos, or listening to, say, your favorite Twitch streamer in the background while you do anything else. You know who you are. There are tons of colors to choose from, and with a 45-day free return policy, it's a safe purchase to make sure that you're happy with it. Click the link in the description below, or go to buyraycon.com/ProJared to get 15% off of your order. And if you do, thanks for supporting me and this channel. And now, on to the show. In the fastest turnaround in the franchise history, Final Fantasy IX was released in North America in November of the year 2000. By the time it came out, the PlayStation 2 was already on store shelves. By the time Final Fantasy IX came out, Final Fantasy X was already revealed. People were already excited for the next generation of consoles and video games, leaving them little desire to play a new game on an already aging console. Basically, Final Fantasy IX is the ignored middle child of the Final Fantasy franchise. Oh no, Final Fantasy IX is me. I've always felt bad for Final Fantasy IX. It quickly became one of my favorites and stayed that way for decades to come. It just didn't make sense to me that so many people chose to shun and ignore it. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to be capturing footage using the HD remasters of the game available on current consoles. It begins with the stormy sea, winds blowing, a young woman trying to survive the torrents in an act of desperation. Quickly, we see this is a daydream, and we are introduced to Princess Garnet. More pivotal, we are introduced to the kind of game Final Fantasy IX is. Castles, knights, princesses, queens, villages, airships that look like boats. This is a statement. The fantasy is back in Final Fantasy. The known aesthetic of the series began to deviate significantly ever since, really, Final Fantasy VI. More and more machines and technology and outright sci-fi encroached onto the fantasy that was cemented for, at this point, over a decade. We know that Final Fantasy is going to have swords, sorcery, rideable birds, and some bad guy at the end who wants to kill a planet or two, or whatever. After many years, and a few games straying from what we knew, Final Fantasy IX brought us right back to where it began. Fantasy. This is intentional. This was to be the last game directed by the series creator, Hironobu Sakaguchi. After this, he left Square. This was also the last time that series composer Nobuo Uematsu was the sole music composer for any more Final Fantasy games. It's not only a reflection upon the series as a whole, but a celebration. They wanted to go out with a bang and remember where they came from and pay tribute to the whole series. And that they did. There are numerous references, callbacks, and hints to every single game of the franchise. The band plays the Shinra March from Final Fantasy VII. The airship is named the Invincible from Final Fantasy III. The four fiends from Final Fantasy I appear as enemies, and even some not-so-subtle references, such as just saying Cloud and Squall. Getting back to the series' roots also meant keeping the same iconic imagery we've become so used to. Moogles, chocobos, the robes of a white mage and a black mage, the best black mage there ever was! And of course, this all ties back to the gameplay itself. Once again, it's back to a party of four. All the characters represent classic jobs. Fighter, thief, white mage, black mage, monk, dragoon, summoner. Tongue? This is with the final appearance of the active time battle system, the battle style that was used for 6 games in a row. Commands are back to familiar territory: attack, defend, steal, magic, jump, so on. Equipment is also back to the familiar. Everyone gets a weapon, armor, a hat, bracer, and an extra accessory. Every fight has you killing enemies, earning experience points to level up, getting money, and moving on to the next random battle. Combat in general is most similar to Final Fantasy IV, in terms of the ATB gauges and each character having an assigned role or job. Limit breaks are also back, only in the form of trance, functioning much like Final Fantasy VII, where after so much damage, the character goes into a trance and gets superpowered in a fancy new outfit. It increases their stats and unlocks additional commands that they didn't have before. Unlike Final Fantasy VII though, trance is going to happen whether you like it or not. Once you hit that damage limit, it's immediately trance. So about 90% of the time, they go wasted on simple random battles or activate only for the battle to be finished like 3 seconds later. I can't even describe how many times this happened to me. Another difference is that Final Fantasy IX's combat is noticeably slower than Final Fantasy VIII. There is just a bit of a hiccup or load time between actions going off, waiting for someone to finish up their flashy animation before the next character can go. I don't mind the slower pace by any means, but even I had moments where I told someone to do something and a brief while later I would say out loud, "Wait, you haven't gone yet?" And, that's about it. That's all that can really be said about the battle system. So what makes Final Fantasy IX's battle system so good and so fun? What does Final Fantasy IX do that makes it so special? Nothing. There isn't anything innovative or noteworthy with its battle system. There isn't anything fresh, no bells and whistles. And that's okay. And that's one of its strengths. Sometimes, you don't need wacky new things to make something enjoyable. There's something to be said about being solid. And that's how I describe IX's battles. Solid. Nothing spectacular, nothing incredible, nothing we haven't seen before, but just good. It's oddly refreshing to get back to basics after the last 3 games kept switching it up. It's like going to a bar and ordering a rum and coke. Not an overly fancy drink by any means, but reliable, you know it'll be there, and with enough of it, it helps you forget Final Fantasy VIII. Speaking of Coke, did you know Japan had an official Final Fantasy IX Coca-Cola commercial? This is real. Even though the battle system itself isn't spectacular, it does set up interesting boss battles. They take strategy, playing around enemy attacks, and careful timing of spells. They felt more involved than the usual bash fest that boss fights tend to be. Especially with certain dungeons, careful equipment preparation usually ends up being more important than the fights themselves. And that's the other major gameplay innovation that Final Fantasy IX provides. Equipment bears greater consideration than ever before, because every piece of equipment teaches each different character different skills and abilities. This is how mages learn new spells, the melee characters learn new attacks, and everyone can learn passive abilities with varying effects. So at the end of each battle, not only do you earn money and experience points, each character also earns ability points, allowing them to permanently learn a skill from their equipment. This provides for some interesting decision making when it comes to weapons and armor. Weapons, you want whatever naturally gives the most attack power, but there are many times where you pause and question the upgrade. Because, well, if I just spend a few more battles with this old weapon, then I'll learn these skills permanently. So you have that decision to make. Go for the immediate payoff and get some much needed extra strength, or hold off so that you get those skills to use while struggling a bit for damage. The same goes for the defensive armor or the extra immunities from accessories. There's much more going on than just equipping whatever has the highest number attached to it. Plus, each character has a limit to the total of abilities equipped, so it's impossible to have them all. The limit goes higher as you level up, so there's another reward for doing so: more abilities. I always love that kind of stuff. I love it when I can make interesting decisions in RPGs outside of just the combat. I wish I could say the skills were more interesting than they actually are, though. Yeah, sure, there's something to getting to learn new spells and summons, but the skills for everyone else is not all that great. Like, Steiner is able to learn different sword strikes that can cause all kinds of debuff effects, but the success rate of them all are so poor that I saw no reason to use any of them when I could just make Vivi cast magic onto his sword instead. And Zidane's extra skill set hardly mattered when all he needed to do was steal, because the item steals in this game is so good. There are tons of passive abilities for everybody though, but a majority of them are defensive abilities. Things like being immune to confusion or stop magic or what have you. There's a couple in there that can change things up, like reduce magic consumption or stronger reflected spells, but for the most part, the ability system isn't so robust that you can come up with a myriad of custom builds. It's more about knowing when you need to swap out passive defenses as needed. And in one of the better additions I've seen, Final Fantasy IX includes the Synthesis Shop, where you can take 2 items and combine them into new, more powerful equipment. It may not sound like much, but basically every single one of our RPG gamer hoarding compulsions gets rewarded by changing that broadsword we've been holding on to since level 3 become way better later on. It feels just as good as finding that elixir that I'll consider maybe finally using once the credits roll. It all ends up being pretty good. It's fun to get the new abilities and play around with what's important to you and what you want active at any time, but it doesn't have so much going on that you can have drastically different playthroughs. I like it. It doubles the excitement of finding a new weapon or hat because you're also getting new skills. I do wish some of the skills were more viable, but overall, it's good. Final Fantasy IX is fun to play. There aren't a whole lot of thrills with it, and it's nothing that we haven't seen before, but, there's nothing wrong with the gold standard. The equipment and the ability stuff does help bring in some spice. It doesn't do anything wrong. Well, except for one thing. Ah man, remember how fun Triple Triad in Final Fantasy VIII was? It was so cool and so popular. It's like Square said, what if we bring it back? But made it stupid. Tetra Master is a card game in Final Fantasy IX that can be played with almost any NPC. It's very much inspired by Triple Triad, with the goal being to take over as many of your opponent's cards as possible. Only more complex, more random, and a lot less fun to play. You have arrows on every card you play. If an arrow points at an opposing card, you take that card over. Unless they have an arrow pointing back. Then the cards fight. Whichever card wins takes the other over. And if any other arrows touch other opposing cards, it combos and takes those over too. Which, with just that, it would be fine. But it's the battling that makes it all awful. Every card has 4 digits on it representing different things. Attack power, attack type, physical defense, and magical defense. The thing is though, it's not as simple as using a higher attack power against a lower defense to help make sure you win the fight. There's crap like magical damage doing more than physical, but also an X attack that trumps both. But more importantly, above all else, it's that the fights are randomized. It means a 0 defense card could defeat a card with 1 or 2 attack power. That makes no goddamn sense. Your best play could be completely ruined by straight up random damage and outcomes. Look, here's a bear, he's a tutu, and here's a chinchilla. This little guy is a 1-1. They fight, right? According to Tetra Master, sometimes this guy wins. Honestly, that's the only thing holding this card game back. It would be just fine, perfectly serviceable, if the randomness didn't ruin it and make some of your best plays worthless. Here's the big thing though. Unlike Triple Triad in Final Fantasy VIII, Tetra Master is mandatory. There comes a point in the game where you have to play in a Tetra Master tournament and win enough to face the champion. You have to play it and you have to get good cards or you are screwed. Imagine any single person outright ignoring Tetra Master throughout their entire first playthrough, and rightfully doing so because it's so infuriating, only to hit this sudden wall of having to play a minigame that doesn't cooperate. Thankfully, after this one forced tournament, you never need to play the card game ever again, which there's no reason to, because there is no other additional reward or benefit from playing or collecting the cards. It's just there if you want it, and nobody does. Even though there are people to play against all the way up through the literal final dungeon of the game. Tetra Master is a weak, forced minigame that hinders the experience. Related to that, one of the better things that Final Fantasy IX does is secrets. There are so many things to find. Nearly every single screen has tons of hidden items to collect by just searching around. You can get plenty of extra money, healing items, and the more hidden ones even have worthwhile equipment. They aren't too difficult to get, just spend the effort exploring and be rewarded for it. The same goes for quests. There are a lot of side quests and extra things to find. Aside from the aforementioned minigame of Tetra Master, there's also Chocobo Hot and Cold, the weird friendly monster quest, extra summons to acquire, this nightmarish abomination, even some ridiculous ones, like getting the Excalibur 2, which requires you to get to the final dungeon of the game in less than 12 hours. That is impossible without a guide, which is why the strategy guide was so heavily pushed with the release of the game. Fun story about that strategy guide. This was released with an all-new online service from Square called Play Online. I'll talk more extensively about that in a future Final Fantasy video, but here's what you need to know for now. Parts of the strategy guide would be excluded, saying things like, for more information, check out Play Online. Play Online was an online service that costed $13 a month to use. Basically, parts of the strategy guide was sold as DLC for a physical book in the year 2000. I want you to process that for a moment. So aside from the battle system itself being unremarkable, everything else around it is pretty good, except for this. I think its only real drawback is that the battles are noticeably slower, even with the battle speed turned to max. but that's a minor con and a plethora of pros. It is quite fun to play, as frequent equipment upgrades, new ability discovery, and constant loadout decisions provides for a constantly engaging gameplay loop. Again, by no means mind-blowing, but it is quite good. Overall, it's just good. It's an enjoyable experience and, most importantly, fun to play. But Final Fantasy IX's best thing was never its gameplay. It was its story, thanks to further improved presentation. Remember how jaw-dropping I said Final Fantasy VII's cutscenes were for their time, and that how Final Fantasy VIII did them even better? Well, playing it again, the cutscenes in 9 are incredible. They have so much more going on, way more animation, there's a frantic energy in a lot of them, and cinematography like never before. I did not appreciate how good these were for the PlayStation 1. I am thoroughly impressed now. A lot of this is helped by its art style. Rather than going for realistic looking characters and anime style or proportions that even make a lick of sense, Final Fantasy IX opts for a stylized, more cartoonish look. And sadly, this turned a lot of people away from this excellent game. I don't blame them. So many people came into the series from Final Fantasy VII and VIII that they had an expectation of art style, or that somehow more realistic looking characters made it more mature or cooler. I've heard people describe this as chibi, which in America carries a connotation of being for children. I don't agree with it being chibi at all. Stylized, absolutely, but not chibi. I think everyone who dismissed 9 because of its art style missed out on something fantastic and should try to reconsider it. And for the most part, that's how it is now. Compared to when it first came out, way more people adore Final Fantasy IX now and note how its graphics have held up the best of all the PlayStation Final Fantasy games. In fact, its art style is now one of the things that a lot of people love for it. I call this the Wind Waker effect. Like when Zelda Wind Waker was first announced, everyone hated it because it was so cartoony compared to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and now Zelda fans won't goddamn shut up about it. Same thing with 9 here. The graphics are arguably better now than they were originally. The music, on the other hand, was always incontestably good. Keeping in line with the theme of being a throwback to the rest of the series, Final Fantasy IX brings back iconic songs in all of their glory. First, the battle theme begins with an all-too-familiar bass line that slaps so hard that this is easily the best version of it. And upon victory, the classic victory fanfare is back without any permutations. There is a distinctively medieval European sound to many of the tracks, and this is no more evident than in one of my favorite tracks, Vámonos Flamenco. Also returning are distinctive character themes. This was a major component in Final Fantasy VI and VII, and in 8 it was greatly diminished. 9 uses character themes fantastically, as they're not just catchy songs, they also provide a supplement to show the character's personality. Steiner's theme has a forced seriousness that it's silly and hard to take seriously. Zidane's theme has an upbeat, positive energy and conveys being adventurous. And in Vivi's theme, you can practically see the curiosity in his shrouded face just from the music alone. Seriously, I can't think of a single song in the entire soundtrack that I dislike. A new pseudo-gameplay addition in relation to the presentation is the introduction of active time events, which is basically a fancy way of saying, meanwhile, elsewhere! Choosing to see the event shows a cutscene that is ostensibly playing out at the exact same time as whatever it is you're doing. It helps make characters feel like they have their own agency, as maybe while you're out shopping, another one is meeting the locals. In the end, it's basically extra cutscenes that are usually fluff, but quite a few of them provide additional scenes of character development. This happens frequently. One of the best things about the plot, the story, and the characters is that they all talk to each other like actual freaking people. Their words chosen are believable. They often bring up their feelings, and the conflicts arisen are often solved by the characters taking a moment to actually talk to each other. So many of these have characters learning about their world or themselves, and many of these cutscenes let them have internal monologues, giving them a time to show their current struggles and actively develop before you. As I've stated before, I'm a big fan of scenes where the main characters get moments to interact and be characters. Final Fantasy IX does this in droves. One of the main goals of the development team when working on this was to really focus on the characters and their development. They nailed it. This is some of the best, most enduring, likable characters the series has ever had, period. Vivi is easily the breakout star. Anyone who's played this already will tell you right away, Vivi is the best. He's so endearing and innocent, and has a heartbreaking story of self-discovery. Because of his perceived youth and inexperience, he's also quite relatable. That feeling of not quite belonging with anyone or never really having a friend. He is the prime example of something that is pure and that must be protected from all harm, making it all that much more gut-wrenching as you witness him discover the truth about himself, his brothers, and his inevitable fate that he cannot escape. Garnet is far from the stuck-up princess stereotype. Her self-improvement and growth to be better than she was before is her main motivation every step of the way. All she wants to do is improve herself. And I used to be a Quina hater. I didn't like their abilities, I didn't think they added much to the game in general, but after playing it again, I like them. They're absolutely a one-note character. Where is food and can I eat it? But at the same time, I can appreciate that. They know what they're about, and while every character gets funny moments, Quina is the comic relief. And I think there's something that can be said about someone who enjoys life's simple pleasures to the fullest and doesn't let anything get in the way of that. All that said, there are some really weak characters too, sadly. Freya is introduced relatively early and is a cool, interesting character. She's a dragoon of Burmecia who left the royal guard for her own reasons, and returning back to Burmecia for the first time in years, she finally bumps into her missing lover, Sir Fratley. She was seeking him out, only for him to return with no memory. She is happy to see him still alive, and that's it. That's where any sort of meaningful story arc with Freya ends. This is approximately a few hours after first getting her, and still at the beginning of Disc 2. Her plot ends as fast as it begins. It's a shame. I wasn't a huge fan of Aiko originally, as I thought her abilities stepped on Garnet's toes a little too much. Her personal story arc isn't expansive either, but that may be because you can only do so much with a young child. She's mostly there to help set up the obvious love story between Garnet and Zidane, though she does have a happy ending that is quite fitting. And then there's Flaming Amaranth. He sucks. He has no real story arc outside of a single line of dialogue that amounts to friendship, good, and basically only exists to fulfill the RPG game prerequisite of edgy lone wolf cool guy character. He provides nothing to anything, and if he was removed, nothing about the game would change. He is a worthless character, outside of punching things and wondering to yourself, what is going on with that hair? Thankfully, the supporting characters make up for those few shortcomings, as even some of them become temporary party members. All of the Tantalus members are great, and honestly, would make better main characters than Amaranth. King Sid works as a great focal point for party members to figure out what's going on, therefore explaining it to the player as well. And Final Fantasy IX is home to the hottest, most beautiful, sexiest character in franchise history, Kuja. This cannot be argued. He is the hottest. General Beatrix goes from a daunting, impossible mini-boss to an absolute power trip when she is a short-lived party member, and watching her story unfold alongside Steiner's is excellent. Like I mentioned, Vivi is the most popular character by far. Anyone who's ever played this game or only ever played the first disc will pretty much tell you how much they love Vivi. That said, I don't think Vivi is the best character in the game. The best character, and my personal favorite, is Steiner. Steiner is not likable. He's a bit of an oaf, and oftentimes actively works against the rest of the party and their main interests. He doesn't do this out of malice, he's only doing what he feels is right. That's what I love about him. His internal dilemma is too good. Remember, I've said before that a character's personal development arc and their front story is just as important as their backstory, and watching his unfold is the strongest of everyone. Everything you need to know about Steiner is shown in one of the first cutscenes in the game. He's proud, devout, and takes being a knight incredibly seriously, but he can see the pain and sadness in Princess Garnet, who he only wants the best for. Yet he is stuck in his personal code. Watching him be such an obstacle for everyone early on and desecrate Zidane at every chance he gets, to the point where he calls Zidane a comrade, to recognizing Garnet's desires and knowing when to give the two of them space, shows just how much he improves and changes as a character. He isn't the most likable or lovable, no, not at all, but he is the best one here. Weirdly, the one character I would argue that changes the least outside of this loser is the main character, Zidane. From the moment you meet him, he is such a positive, happy-go-lucky guy, and more importantly, one of the most reasonable, level-headed, and supportive characters ever. So many small moments where I can't help but admire him. He trusts people, allows them to make their own decisions, and goes his whole life by a simple rule. You don't need a reason to help someone. He helps people all the time, it's his thing. Moments such as when Garnet takes control of the airship to turn it around to Lindblum, Zidane offers to help, and Garnet says, "No, I got this." His response to that was just, "Okay, yeah, you got it." That may seem small, but to just trust someone like that and allow them to make their own decisions shows a lot of emotional maturity. I say as just moments earlier he straight up grabbed her ass. That's sexual assault! And by the end of the whole game, Zidane is still a positive, good character. That isn't to say he doesn't suffer hardships, because when he does, it hits hard, which is why one of the best, most memorable moments in all of Final Fantasy IX isn't when Alexander destroys Bahamut, or Blank being turned to stone, or the Aetha tree being destroyed. It's when Zidane becomes sad, accompanied by a song that plays only here in the entire game, aptly named, "You Are Not Alone." Seeing Zidane become a depressed former shell of himself after dozens of hours hurts to see, like seeing a friend go through a hard time and you're not sure how to help him other than to say, "Don't worry, I'll still be here for you," which is exactly what all of his friends do. It's a simple, powerful moment, and we've all experienced it ourselves at some point in our lives. It's something that, to some degree, every one of us can empathize with, further showing just how good the story and characters of Final Fantasy IX are. Alright, Final Fantasy VII is the most important one. Final Fantasy VI is my favorite one. Final Fantasy IX is the best one. It has too many good things going for it to not be the best. It has the most well-rounded, solid gameplay of them all, and is enjoyable in spite of it being unremarkable in many ways. And if the only major complaint is the card game, the lack of faults signifies a good game. More importantly, it's the story and the characters that makes Final Fantasy IX resonate to this day. Almost all of them, even the side characters, are likable, and they all are emblematic of its central theme, not being alone. It's regrettable how often 9 is overlooked and forgotten in the deep-casted shadows of Final Fantasy VII and 8. But as days go by, more and more, its glimmering light sparkles through. With the modern remasters available on every platform, or through even the excellent Steam mods such as the graphics improving Moguri mod, Final Fantasy IX is worth your one more playthrough. If I had to pick one game of the franchise for series fans to go back and play again, it's Final Fantasy IX. It released with every marketing hindrance you could possibly think of, a fate it did not deserve. Now I've got lots more to say about this. In fact, and if you're interested, I can tell you. If you subscribe to Play Online, only $13 a month, plus one more dollar for every paragraph of conversation that you want to hear. No, wait, don't go! I've got tons of AOL CDs with 500 free hours on them!